Hello and welcome to the DSO Imager channel. Tonight we're going to go ahead and process my latest image, the Elephant Trunk Nebula. This image was taken with my Stellarvue SV70T. It's a 70mm refractor with a focal length of 336 millimeters, and I used an ASI 1600 mono. Now I'm going to break this up into two parts. The first part is going to cover everything prior to the initial stretch, and then the second part will cover everything after that initial stretch. So what you can see here, I've already processed this image already, and this is how it turned out. So I'm going to reprocess this completely from scratch, and it'll be interesting to see if the final result comes close to what I got the first time through. I notice that every time I process an image, each image is an individual, and it's always a little bit different. So this will be interesting. Alright, so let's look at the individual stacked frames here. This is our O3, just under 7 hours of exposure. Here's the S2. And there's our HA. Now, the first thing we need to do is crop and register the images. And the reason we do this is to get rid of the stacking artifacts. Also, I didn't have the spacing quite right when I took these shots, and so the stars in the corner are not great, and I'm just going to crop them out. Alright, so we made that change to the HA. Now we're going to register the other two frames to the HA. Go ahead and get rid of these since we don't need them. So now this next step, normally I would run dynamic background extraction, but lately I've been doing the channel combination first, and it seems to work out pretty well. So let's do that real quick. So for the Hubble palette, S2 goes to red, HA goes to green, O3 goes to blue. Alright, now let's see what we have. On the STF tool, I always leave the link channels unchecked. This allows it to auto-stretch each individual color. It gives you a better idea to see what you have. Now, of course, we're doing mono processing, but if you're running a one-shot color camera, at this stage, it's pretty much the same. So if you're using one-shot color camera, you can pick up right from this point and follow along. Alright, so now let's go ahead and run dynamic background extraction. As for the settings that I'm plugging in here, where did I get them? Well, to be honest, I got them by watching YouTube videos. So this would actually be a good time to go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button on this video, and if you watch anyone else's video where they're doing processing and you're picking up techniques on how to do things, go ahead and like those videos and subscribe to the content creator that put that together. Alright. Go ahead and put our reference points in there. And I like to just do 4 corners. I mean, there's all kinds of different strategies that you can apply when putting these reference points in there. And really, it would be good to do some trial and error, but at least for me, typically 1 in each corner, it usually works out pretty well. and I'll run it twice. First time with division and the second time with subtraction. Okay, next I'm going to go ahead and pull luminance out of this. And we're going to do some work on this luminance channel. Alright, now next we're going to go ahead and do some noise reduction. And we can take a close look, and this actually doesn't look too bad. But we're going to see if we can smooth this up a little bit more. And so I'm just going to use the Easy Processing Suite denoise. And these settings here, I pulled them back a little bit. Pulled back on the strength a little. I pulled all these back a little bit. And the main reason was that I did some trial and error. So you'll want to choose some trial and error. And then we'll go ahead and hit run. Now I already ran this. It takes a while for it to run on my computer. And the results that I got are over here. And we want to take a close look and make sure we didn't lose any detail. We just want to smooth out that noise a bit. So let's see how that elephant trunk looks. So the left has been denoised and the right is the original. And yeah, I think this worked. No apparent loss in detail, but we definitely took care of some of that grain. Let's look at one of the darker areas. And yeah, this looks like it worked out well for us. Okay, so next we're going to do some deconvolution. Now, deconvolution really helps with getting back some of the details that you lose thanks to the atmosphere. Now, on shorter focal lengths like this, it's not a big deal, and you'd be forgiven if you skip this step. At longer focal lengths, though, it really benefits. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is pick out our stars for the PSF. So we open up Dynamic PSF here, and what we're looking for are small round stars. So if your field isn't perfectly flat, you're going to want to avoid the edges. Now the other thing is, ideally you want to pick stars that are not in any nebulosity, but on an image like this, that's going to be difficult. So I'm just going to start grabbing them. Now this is what you want. You want it to say this, MOFAT. If you pick a star that's too bright, you're going to get this Gaussian, and that's not going to work. And if you have any stars you need to remove from this list, you just highlight it and hit the minus button. You don't have to be too picky on the stars. because what'll happen is you're just going to average them all out anyway. And I usually like to get about 20 or so. Alright. So I'm doing a Control A to select all, hit the little camera button, and there's my PSF. Now we still need a range mask and a star mask. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stretch this picture real quick. And now I'm going to run the star mask. And these settings here, this is more or less just experience. These settings work pretty well. I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording and resume once the star mask is done. Alright, we got our range mask. Our star mask. Now we want to do the range mask. And the idea of the range mask is we only want to apply the deconvolution to the brighter areas of the image. Now I can do the range mask against this, or I can modify this image a little bit to get more contrast, and that's what we're going to do. Basically, I'm only going to want to apply the mask to these areas that are lit now. Alright, now we need to undo all the stuff that we did to this luminous channel. So it needs to be in the linear state for deconvolution. Alright, so let's apply our mask. And we'll want to invert this mask. And I'm going to create a preview box that encompasses the entire image. And we'll work in this preview. So let's open up deconvolution. We want to use external PSF. Drop our PSF in the view identifier. Check next to D-ringing. Check local D-ringing. And drop our star mask in there. Now, it's pretty simple. Global dark removes the dark rings that you see around the stars, and global bright removes the white rings that are around the stars. So the way I've been working this is I drop this number here on the global dark, and by the way, these numbers are super sensitive. I'll drop it down to like this, and what we're looking for, we're actually looking for the dark circles around the stars. So I'm going to zoom in, and we're going to drop this in here and see if we get some dark circles. Now again, I'll pause the recording because this will take a little bit, and then I'll resume once this process is finished. Alright, so it just finished, and here you can see, so we got some dark circles there. Notice also that we're getting, I mean, it's enhancing some faint stars, but I think it's also enhancing some of the noise, which is, by the way, why I run denoise before deconvolution. Because if you don't, you have extra grain in the background, deconvolution is going to enhance some of that, just make the image noisier. So I mean, this actually isn't too bad. And we're only getting the rings around the brighter stars. It's important to check all around the image because you can get it where it gives you great results in some parts of the map, but poor results in other parts. So to be honest, this is actually not too bad. What I'm going to do now to get rid of this extra noise it's giving us is I'm going to bump up the global bright a tiny little bit. So let's try this here. I'm also going to raise this just a little bit more to see if I can help with these rings around these really bright stars. By the way, if you hear me clicking back and forth between these, it's the keystroke is hold Control Shift and Z, and just use Z to toggle back while you're holding down Control and Shift. Makes it real easy to compare before and after. Alright, I'm going to apply these settings and pause the recording and resume as soon as this finishes. Alright, so how are we looking now? See, we're not getting that orange peel speckled noise as much now, and that was purely from boosting the global bright a little bit. So if you boost it up too much, you get it'll bring the dark circles back because it eliminates the bright ring, and so you end up getting stuck bouncing between these two different settings. But this is nice. See, it does a nice job with the stars too. We're getting some rings around these, and this is something you'll run into if you have an image with a really bright star, which is another reason why you may want to mask it off. I'm not going to worry about that guy or these guys over here, because to get these tuned in, it may cause weird issues with the other ones. I think overall I'm pretty satisfied, but let's see how that trunk looks. Yeah, I mean, not bad for a 70mm telescope, huh? Really does a nice job in this area. Stars are looking good. Alright, so I think I'm going to go with this. I'm going to apply it to the image now. Okay, so we're ready now with this luminance channel. I think this came out pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and just make another clone. I tend to make a lot of clones while I'm working. Alright, and here's our color. Now, both of these images are still linear, and we need to stretch them. So now, there's a number of different ways that you can do this, and honestly, on the color side, you'd probably want to do color calibration, but in this case, I actually like the auto stretch. Sometimes the auto stretch is too harsh, but I think it actually works pretty good. And so I'm going to just accept this auto stretch. So we just need to bring the histogram transformation back up. And then you just drag and drop this onto the histogram and then drop it on your image, and there, it just applied that stretch. We'll do the same for this. There we go. Now, before I put the luminance back into this color, we need to blur this out. And the reason we do this is that this is just for color now. We're not getting any detail out of this. All our detail is in here. And so we can eliminate any extra graininess that's in here by applying a very strong noise reduction. So I'm going to use MMT, and this is easy. We just disable these layers. And then we drop this onto the image. To rescale these are drizzled images, so they're pretty large. Okay. So now you can see this is really smoothed out. Now we go to the LRGB combination tool. Drop the luminance in here and apply it to our color image. Alright, and there it is. So here's our stretched color image. And so this concludes part 1. Keep a lookout for part 2, where I do everything post-stretch. So it's mostly going to be a lot of work with curves and maybe some ranger masks and managing the colors. Thanks a lot, and clear skies.